Hello, everyone. Welcome to April's Geomagic Tech Tips webinar. I'm by Adam again this month, and today's topic is looking at directional tolerancing and annotation grouping. I'll be monitoring the questions and the chat throughout the webinar. So if you've got any questions as Adam walks you through his demo and his presentation, then let us know and we will do our best to answer them right at the very end. Perfect. Over to you, Adam.
Okay. So yeah, today we're going to run through a little bit of setup in Control X. We're going to throw some annotations on stuff. I did want to talk about a little bit about unilateral tolerancing, just because it's a question that we get now and again of just how to do that. So, and so we could run through some of that, and then I was going to show you how to put together just some of like dim groups and kind of how I set up reports to look with picking things for views and updating them and stuff like that to kind of make them look decent. So try to follow along with like a set of prints to make them look nice. So let me do that, and then let me switch over to CX here. So let's do that. And all right, you guys should be seeing CX now, hopefully. So, and yeah, so let's jump right in here. So first things first is we have the ability to stack results and then also create grouping for dimensions. So, and then what I'm going to do is just kind of show some different ways to tolerance stuff. So what I usually do when I set up is I think about like, what is my first thing on the print? Like, what's my first big section that I want to do? Is it like something that's like top down, or is it like from a cross section that's the most interesting as far as what are the main aspects of the drawing? So for something like this, we'd probably start on the top face here, just because there's a bunch of holes to call out and positions and stuff like that, or we want to set up some datums here. So, and then I usually pick which dim groups I'd want to show datum in, okay? Because like if I'm looking at this front face here, on a print, you would never see this from the top. Like you would always see it as like this is from the side. And same with like the back face. If this is like a mating ceiling datum here, you would see this, on the side view. So I try to think about that as I lay stuff out. So I'm going to come in here and we're going to grab a couple things here. So the first things first is I'm going to lay on a couple datums and then think about which group they should be in. So normally if I want to start at the top face, maybe I want that group one, but it doesn't really matter. We can move stuff around. So let's come in and like hit that. And then I'm going to say like what would be, my datum A here is like on my bottom face. So I'm just going to throw these out here. I'm not following a print right now, but I just wanted to kind of show you guys how I set some of this stuff up. And, obviously, a bore is very, would be important in a transmission case or something like that, like this. So I'm going to come in and pull this in as like B. Okay. And then, maybe this like clocking or something would be good as C. So we'll do something along those lines. So you'll notice this is all in group one, and we have group one sitting up here. So this is like a picture that I'd see in my report. And right now it's just the isometric view of the part, and it's not very interesting. So let's go and make that kind of look like it would. Now B and C wouldn't show up on a top view, which might be group one, or B and C will, but A will not. So maybe let's go and create a group here. Again, we'll have like group two. You'll see there's a drop down box for making this stuff on the top here. I just out of habit right click that. If you wanted to make another one, you could just click the add group here and push it in. And then as I expand these carrots out, I always tell people, be careful turning off obviously main trunk eyeballs here, because then everything disappears. But and then I could come in and say like, hey, for group two, this is probably where we would want to see A, like if we were starting stuff on a side view. So I'd come and push this and I'd move that to group two. So, and then now if I, was going to start taking like report pictures, okay, I'm not going to be able to turn off group two. We'll be able to look at our top down view here. If I stick like normal two, okay, or I just pick my face. Okay, we can do something like that. It's automatically going to clock to my axes, but as I'm showing off dimensions here for, what my datums would be, I could come in and get that screenshot that I'm going to start using here and hit rebuild. So, and then carry me through like my face dimension. So I'll leave group 2 off for now, and then we can come in, put on all the normal stuff we would. I like using smart dimension as much as I can. And then that is also save view state. So you'll see what I mean by that in a minute here. But if I came in here and we started throwing stuff on here, so I come in and I'm not going to really just put I'll put some tolerancing on some of these. As I come in, obviously I can sit here and say like, hey, that's 0.1. We could do something like that. If I wanted to do something, bidirectional, if I wanted to be like, -0 plus 0.1, this is where it would come in and put like, 0. And then I could use a couple different things for symbols here. So I could come in and usually I use the little tilde sign, but we could also do like a comma or something like that, depending on what you want to type. And then I could say 0.1. And then now what'll end up was like a -0 plus 0.1. So, and I get asked this question kind of all the time, and there's multiple ways to do that. Like I said, I like using the tilde. One of the things I wanted to show you guys too is you'll forget which ways they're doing. So when you're in any function here, this is like another thing I like to kind of show off, is hit F1. It'll bring out your little help here for like dimension. And then as we come down and roll through here, if I wanted to put in different tolerancing types, you'll see I could use the tilde, I could use the comma, I could use a slash, I could use a colon, and then type all that into the input box, okay? But the help thing is it's very, very useful. So there's lots of stuff in here. So we'll go and like throw that in on that one. You do always have to put the negative first. So if I came in, and I didn't save that dimension. So let's do that again. You have to remember to hit check or else it doesn't know. So it does remember, which is nice. So I'll go and like hit that. I'm putting in group 2, say rookie mistake. So this is why we leave all that in. So we'll delete that one. We don't need that one. We're trying to work in group 1, so I can move that to group 1. But what we want to do is it's going to add into whatever it is selected in the top here that we're actually adding into. So this is that was my rookie mistake for the day. Here we go. I forgot to select the correct group. And if I add in the second section here for my cylinder diameter, I'm in smart dimensions. That's why as I highlight over stuff, it's doing all over kinds of stuff. That's why it's like looking for if I want to measure to something else or an angle between things or whatever else. If you just pick a radial, obviously it's just give me the radius. So, and then you always have to put minus first. So remember, it's like if I did like minus like 0.2, and then I like again using the tilde and 0.1. So stacks in really, really easy. And then you'll also notice if we want to that automatically as I add these dimensions, okay, and my tagging and everything else, that since I picked my datums here, it's going to automatically attach that stuff. So I can decide how I want to view things and pull this out here, and we can try to make something like look consistent. And then I could always hit normal again here, or I can hit my face in my CAD views. What I like to do is just click on the group here, and if I hit apply, okay, it's going to take me back to that viewpoint. Now, I didn't have those other dimensions in here when I did that viewpoint, so I would like turn them back on. Leave group 2 off because I don't want to show them. That's going to take me back to that viewed face exactly the way I had it. I could always adjust a little bit if I want to get something in there, and then we would hit rebuild. So, and then this is what we would do to work through doing stuff on some of the prints, okay? Dropping stuff in, putting them in. If, we wanted to get rid of a background because something was confusing, maybe we were all at one level or something like that. So, we could do things, it's kind of fun, like, using view clip and things like that. So I was going to show you a little bit of that too. So I'll turn this group 1 off. Let's turn group 2 on. We're just our datum for now. So maybe we want to get, maybe we need some heights between things. So maybe we need to go from, one of these faces down here, on the backside of one of these rings to, something else for clearance. Like, let's say, we measure that up to our face here just to get like an overall height. We can't really see that right here because we would need a cross section to see that. And we could always do it with a 2D cross section. Of course, I could come into like my dims, I could hit 2D GD&T and create a cross section. That's just going to be like a line drawing of wherever that is that I put it. But sometimes I like to use 3D measurements and fake stuff out a little bit. So a lot of times what I'll do in some of these views is I'll come in and hit view clip here, okay? And, we can hit set, and then I can pick what I want to do. So I can pick I need to pick reference planes. I could just do a box and chop stuff off if I want to. Now I want to make this indicative of what is in my print. So if I'm showing it, my print view is section A, cuts through these two holes here. We could either make reference geometry based on that, or what else I could do is come in and just create a plane and then pick that I want to do by definition. And we're just going to say 0, 0, 0 position. Okay. And then you'll notice my origin is down over here. And then I can say we're going to do it in Y direction, coming out forwards. Now, if that hole wasn't centered, what I would do is I'd extract out a couple of things. I'd probably pull out my axes, okay, and a point for the center of the circle, and then I would use that to make a plane. So we would just do a different method here. There's lots of different methods, just like in any CAD program. So, and then I can create an average plane to put that in. So now when I come into view clip, I can hit set. I can hit below plane, and just click my plane, okay? So, and then it does this fun thing in 3D. So obviously if I wanted to switch direction, I can flip it around, but I could actually put in what I want to do for the plane too in here, okay? I like to make the geometry to click on. If I do this, it remembers it once. It's not something that I can come back to again and again. So I do recommend making the actual plane, and then you can just click on it every time. We don't need to include it in a report or anything like that. So we can turn the, if we want to turn the A tag off, and then you'll see with our CAD facing, sometimes I kind of like the fact that it's dark in the section, okay? We don't do hatching, but what I generally would do is come in, and instead of making the backfaces competent, I can say as is, and then it's all gray. Or we could always user define the back face. So I have red in here because I just really like the way it stands out when I do this. And then people know automatically when they're looking at the report that the red is the inside. So, and then we can come in and put in, our linear dimensions. So I can actually just grab that face that was there in 3D, take it back, and pop it out to the side like I normally would. I mean, we can just do something unilateral on that. I forgot to put it in group 2 again. See what I did? See what happens? It's gonna be one of those Wednesdays. So I could turn that stuff on for showing group 2. This is out in space because I'm in 3D, but I could always drag it around to where I want it. So, it looks nicer back there. And then we could come in and focus on this area if we want to. We could always go normal to that plane again if we want. I can come in and click that to lock us back in, which is again why I like to make the plane, because maybe that plane isn't on a standard view. And then if we just wanted to view a section, now I could do something with box and line something up to chop out the right side, but usually this works pretty well. We're automatically going to cut on the screen section. So I'll come in here to group 2. And I will hit update on that, and we'll just move it around. I want to make sure my tags are fitting in my section here. It's chopping a window out of the middle of the screen. So you'll see if you just put stuff way too far off to the edges that it's not going to fit in. So, and that's kind of a little bit how I start setting up some of this stuff. So I always kind of think about it and run through how we want to just look at things. So again, this is all pre-planned, and then these are saved view states. So if I'm hey, I added that into group 1, if I wanted to add some other dimensions in here, I can do that. And then what I can do is as I move around, I will just come back here and hit reapply, and you'll see it automatically turns off everything else, okay? And saves that view state. And I can, if I had stuff that was on or whatever else I want to change, I would just hit update, and it'll take me right back there. So it's a really, really convenient way to get around. So hopefully that will save you guys much time. And then setting up the, unilateral and bilateral dimensioning, is a good feature. You guys probably have to do that all the time. So the GD&T features and things like that, obviously they're a standard kind of set up for the dimensioning. So if I had to come in and throw a profile on something, the surface profile, things like that, don't do plus and minus. So, but yeah, that's kind of how I go through and set up a bunch of this stuff. If you wanted to look at some of the stuff in, defining this, okay, the user defined is going to be in the preferences. So now I have to remember where to change this because I did want to show you this to you guys. So if I come into display here and I do like back faces, it's going to be a red one. So let's do I read over it probably. There you go, user find backface color. And it wasn't in there somewhere. It's in colors or in the prop. So anyway, you could just come in and click in any of these and change whatever you want. And this will also allow you to change really anything in the program. I don't know if you've played in here. Some people have issues with certain colors, some of us. So, you could pick something that you really like that stands out. There's also options to change, some line weights and things like that in here too. So if stuff is challenging to look at, but definitely worth a look to go in and do this. Everything in these menus you'll see in here, there's an import export, okay, and like default. So you can't mess it up because you could always hit reset. And then if you put a bunch of these settings for different things the way you like them, and you have to move around licenses or between like different installs on different computers, maybe you got a couple throughout the office, you could just hit export on this preference file and it'll save all these things out for you. So if you go to your other instance, you can hit import really quick, pull in all your preference settings, your colors, your line weights, everything else, even settings on the program on how it does stuff, and it makes it really convenient to move stuff around. So same as also for the ribbons and things like that. So, but that was kind of like a short and little sweet tech tip here. So I don't know if there was any questions about kind of anything I showed, or somebody wants to see something completely different. I kind of like to leave this a little bit open because we kind of just want to get you guys so you can ask us questions on these things and we can just roll with stuff. So, but
Great, thanks, Adam. Yeah, has anyone got any questions about what Adam has showed? Anything surrounding these features that you want him to go any more in depth about?
And then I guess I can show you guys, when you're generating your report, these are all your screen grabs for your report here. So if I did come in and just hit generate, and I'm just going to leave everything in there for now and just do our standard little landscape template here. I didn't set up my views for my stock views. So these are probably going to be, this is general. It's just a general ISO, which is not a great one. And it took it with my thing on. So what I would do is come in and we would turn off my view clip, and then I could come in to my reference data, and I could always change this around if I like. Turn stuff off on here. Just create a better view. Maybe, everyone just really cares about the inside and we're just showing an ISO view. And maybe this is what some of the stuff that changes in, like on a part per part basis, if there's a part family. So again, you just like update this guy. So, and then if I'd measure data in here, I could do the same thing. A lot of times I'll leave the measure data in the same orientation just to show the scan off in the picture of the report. And then anything in the report, I just hit rebuild. You'll notice there's little green arrows everywhere on because I changed some stuff. So now it'll just update my views. So as I pick things, and now I have professional print looking views in my report. So it makes it a really easy way to line up everything, easily communicate what's going on, and then people don't have questions. So some of the line weights I do change from time to time. So I don't always make these black. Sometimes they're hard to see. So it just depends on what you're looking at, how complicated things are. But so I don't know. Yeah. guys want to see anything else that's interesting?
Great. Short and sweet this week. If there's no questions, then appreciate everyone's time. You'll receive the recording after the webinar, so you're able to review or share with anyone else that you think might be interested in these tools. Look out for our Tech Tuesday email that comes out at the beginning of each month for the invite to the next Tech Tips. Thanks a lot, Adam. Appreciate the time. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you on the next one.
Cheers, guys.